You're watching Global Trade This Week with Pete Mento and Doug Draper.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another weekly edition of Global Trade This Week. I am Doug Draper, one of your co-hosts, and we're excited to get this show started. My other partner in crime, who's like, where's Waldo, is Mr. Pete Mento. So, Pete, good day, sir. How are you?
I'm good, buddy. I'm coming in live and direct from beautiful Indianapolis, Indiana.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you know what? You know what I like best about Indianapolis is the headboards on their hotels are awesome. I'm thinking that thing behind you, is that a headboard? What is that flowery thing?
You know, it's that typical Marriott kind of structure, art piece that they call a headboard. Yeah. Man, I'm in so many hotels I don't even know anymore. I should just get a sleeping roll and find a hostel everywhere I go, for God's sakes.
Yeah,
I
for
was
sure.
in a beautiful hotel last week in Norway. Really, really nice. And there was something interesting. The key cards were made of wood. And I said, is this an environment? They said, absolutely. You wouldn't want to know how many plastic key cards hotels create in a year. And we just see this as another way. I was like, that's pretty cool. Yeah. So I'm wondering if I'm going to see more of that now as I travel.
Yeah. Well, you will certainly find out with the amount of traveling that you do. So, all right. Well, let's get this party started. Pete, we got four good topics today. I'm excited about it. We'll let you kick off.
I am too. So the real nice bit of information that's been published out of DC and a number of different media outlets is that both the US and China have kind of made clear what's holding up the framework for an agreement. So it's not earth-shattering news, but to see that these are the things that are holding it up. So for the US side, we're asking China to reverse the course on the soybean purchases. As we've talked about in the past, soybean farmers are getting really beat up bad right now because China has made the decision to look at other parts of the world as a way to use their leverage on the US. So that's one of the first things is they want to see China knock that off. The second is a sort of an attitudinal switch from our friends in China about rare earth materials to get those flowing again to the US and not make it so difficult. And, the third biggie right now between us and them is fentanyl and their continued support of U.S. interdiction movements towards it. So trying to keep China involved as they have been, maybe even kick it up a little bit more to help us to deal with the fentanyl crisis. On the Chinese side, they want an agreement from us to purchase our rare earth materials for a long, long time because they're facing all sorts of competition now from Canada and Australia who are setting up their own refineries, and they see that. So they want some sort of long-term. They want to have access to high-end American technology too, which is huge. We have been stymieing the ability for them to grow with technology by saying no. So these are the things. And again, it's not some revelation. We all knew it was there. But to say this is really it. All the other stuff, we think we found some common ground, but this is it. And they're big things. But I think that they're things that we can probably find a way to work on together, Doug. So I'm going to stick with my latest prediction that I think that they're going to come out of this APAC with some sort of a framework, or we'll have rumors that they've gotten over those things between Xi Jinping and Mr. Trump.
Yeah. Of those three things, right, I know there's some peripheral topics that are in there. The soybean thing, again, with my company focused a lot on the ag industry in Central California, being a Kansas boy, like I personally know soybean farmers in Oklahoma, right? Now, I know them. We're not like drinking buddies or anything like that, but one of them I went to college with. That's a big deal. And my concern, Pete, on that one specifically, has the window passed? And so I was doing some research on like, when do you grow some soybeans? When do the contracts sign to produce? And that window is closing, right? And so even if we come to an agreement on the soybeans, like the POs have already been cut in other parts of the world, right? And then what is left is the reorders, right? I'm dumbing this down just to keep things simple. The big purchase order is done, right? So let's work all this stuff out. But what's left is the second orders, so to speak, the reorders, and then all the crap that's left over that people are just trying to get rid of. And so the market and the commodities market just drops it down. So I love that it's a priority. I don't know how much help it's going to bring to the farmer right here and right now for this season. Again, I'm not a farmer. obviously, right? But I'm concerned that that window has passed, and those POs have already been written in other countries and other soybean producers that are not American. And that one gives me pause. So I'll be curious to see what happens positively if that transpires in the next couple of weeks.
I agree, Doug. I mean, the harvest is past, right? They've already got their orders. They've done that. So is that really helping for this year? Can they convince China to buy some of that surplus? Maybe that's part of this. But even then, how much can they buy? And something that a friend of mine brought up this morning when we were talking about it, there's a lot of soybeans that move on ships to China. So what is this doing to transportation rates on bulk, on ag? We're big friends of the ag group here on the show. We probably talk too much about farming, to be honest.
Yeah.
Farming and railroads get a lot of attention from us. But the fact remains, it's the backbone of a huge part of the American economy. And those exports mean a lot to not just people on the farm, but processed foods, transportation providers, fertilizers, all the inputs that go into making it as well. So this is a real problem, and I don't know if the average American considers that when they think about the trade
war. Yeah, it'll be interesting, but I'm glad it's happening. And when you have when you bring this topic in a positive light, Pete, before the show, you weren't dropping F-bombs and we weren't frustrated about what's transpiring. So I am confident, based on your demeanor related to this topic, that we're going to be in good shape.
I'm feeling pretty good. Yeah.
Good.
Well, what you got, Doug?
All right. So my first one is tariff related. Shocker. And I saw an article pop up this morning on it. The 25% tariff for imports on medium and heavy duty trucks that goes into effect on November 1st. Kind of, what does that mean and everything else? So yeah, it's the 25% tariff. The question I had, Pete, is like, okay, what about the assembly? That's been something that's been publicized for decades. They've been talking about assembled in Georgia, assembled in Tennessee, and South Carolina are some of the states that I remember that are big assemblies. So what does that mean for companies that are like, yeah, we're already doing the best we can at this time and in this moment with the assembly? And so for our audience, I wanted to simplify it mostly for me so I can explain it. Right. But so the 25% tariffs will apply only for the parts that are imported. Right. And then so if you're assembling it, American parts are not affected, labor involved with or not, it's just the part. So a couple things on that. There's also a 3.75% credit back on the full value of the truck if it is assembled. Right. So you got to call out and manage the parts that were procured overseas. You're not taxed on other things, obviously, that are made domestically, the labor and such to put it all together. And then at the end, you can say a 3.75 credit on the value of the truck. Now, it's not the resale value, right? If you're buying a truck for $300,000, right, the 3.75 is not on the MSRP, for lack of a better term. It's really the cost to produce. So that's okay. There's some things to try to mitigate it. But the thing I thought of mostly, Pete, is your people, right? Your people that I see chime in on your posts on LinkedIn is in compliance and customs brokers that are like, my mind is about to explode. The compliance, the documentation, the in the weeds mentality that needs to happen in this day and age to make sure their employers and companies are compliant. This just adds another level, right? And there's even talk about the ambiguity of how things are checked and how do they validate this? How do they verify? They meaning, customs. When in doubt, you got to comply. And you've spoken about that many, many times. You don't want to mess around with this. So I was thinking the first thing is like, okay, you got to quantify the value of the products that are coming in that are sourced internationally and out of the U.S. Then you got to figure out this 3.75% if you want to credit, and is it on the resale, the manufacturer? Do we add labor? Do we not add labor? All that kind of stuff. It all boiled down to your people, Pete, is just another level of, holy shit, my job just got infinitely more complicated than just years past. So anyway, I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's another circle at Dante's Inferno, man. So the things that really came to mind when I saw this topic today was first, USMCA parts that come from Canada and Mexico should be exempt. So that's good news because a lot of the inputs for American trucks are coming, not all of them, A lot are. And the second thing that frustrated me was how foreign trade zones are kind of ineffective now, because you have all these parts come in and then you apply the duty to the finished good. But now, because the parts are coming in under privileged foreign status, we have to account for that higher tariff when it comes out. So it's kind of erased all the benefit that gave. And that's unfortunate, because most of these things are made in foreign trade zones. And the third thing that came to my mind was, when you were talking about compliance, this is a mess that needs a process. This is going to require systems to manage. It's going to require inputs where people are putting in what the percentages are for regional value content, determining it. That doesn't exist right now. No one is really focused on a kind of a large sweeping concept. The government sure isn't going to make it. So it's going to open up this hole for people to either build it themselves or use a third party. And can they do it fast enough? I don't think they can, Doug. This stuff changes so quickly. There's going to be a period of time where folks are just going to have to suffer through doing the math. And that's super unfortunate. But it's where we are with all of these tariffs, not just the automotive one.
Yeah, interesting.
Good call out.
All right. Yeah. So, all right, that brings us to halftime, brought to us by Cap Logistics. We were talking before the show about how much we appreciate their efforts and Keenan's week in and week out assistance to make this show possible. So check out caplogistics.com. Pete, you're staying in theme, so I'll let you go first on your halftime.
Yep. So every week during the spooky season, I want to use my halftime to talk about something about Halloween. So my daughter loves to watch old 80s Halloween spooky movies and tell me how they're not scary anymore. Yeah. That what I thought was scary is not in fact scary. This is a kid who's 19 years old, and like her and her friends giggle while they watch Saw. It's very troubling. I don't know if I have to put her into therapy or what. But I'm not really a horror film guy, Doug. So I'm not really that guy. When I was younger in high school, we would all go to the movies together in big packs of teenagers, where big group dates, if you will, and we would go see the latest Nightmare on Elm Street or whatever the case may be. And looking back on them, maybe they weren't so scary. But I wanted to see if you had 3 of those movies that you personally enjoyed. So are there 3 movies that would be in the horror genre that you are a fan of?
Yeah, hard genre is probably, wouldn't put these in these categories. It would be the laughable. I can't even, as a young person, like, this is lame, right? When my kids watched Breakfast Club or Pretty in Pink, they're like, this show is so boring and it is so slow. They literally got up and left, and I was personally offended by that.
Me too.
Yeah. So to answer your question, Poltergeist back in the day. So my films are so long ago, some of our listeners may remember them, but Poltergeist and Carrie Ann, that little girl, freaked me out, right? So that would be one of them. The Amityville Horror, that one was, I'd put that number 3, Poltergeist number 2, and then obviously Nightmare on Elm Street. That was like next level in the moment, right? And they turned that into a franchise. But the first one, right, was like, oh my God, Freddy Krueger and these fingers and all that. That was pretty crazy. And just right now, Pete, I was thinking about it. What was that one that was made? Everybody thought it was real, and it was just made with like the budget was like a couple $100,000 or something. What was it called?
Blair Witch Project. Blair Witch. That is on my list. That is on the list. Yeah. Yeah. So my list, number 1 is Blair Witch Project. I went and saw with my ex-wife and a friend of hers who was a costume designer. She worked in theater back then. And they all made fun. So I went and saw it with them, and they all made fun of me that I thought it was so scary. And that hurt, Doug. That really hurt my masculinity. The second, without question, is The Exorcist. I saw it way too young. I was raised way too Catholic, and that movie messed me up. And I've seen it since, and it's not as scary, but it still hits pretty hard, man. Like, it still freaks me out enough. And my third is Poltergeist. Just like the idea of remembering that preacher in the series of movies, it freaks me out. So those are 3 movies that still manage to scare me. I really love some of the movies just because of the kitsch, like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, and it's the silly ones like Fright Night. So the humor horror genre. Right. But I'm a big fan of the Romero flicks like Land of the Living Dead, all the zombie flicks. And again, on that humor genre, the one with Simon Pegg in the zombies. can't remember the name of it right now, but yeah, I would rather watch something that makes me laugh with a little bit of horror in it than just trying to scare the bejesus out of me, Doug.
Yeah, yeah. I think we're obviously our movies. What was 6 of them? 4 of them were completely aligned. So
Yeah. And you
great.
talked about Breakfast Club. I do want to mention to everyone, I will be at Comic-Con in Rhode Island. And the main reason I'm just not setting my daughter up for the weekend, but I'm going with her, is that most of the cast of the Breakfast Club will be there.
Ah,
So I'm probably going to melt into starstruck romantic love when I see Molly Ringwald face to face. The security may get involved, Doug, is what I'm trying to say. It's going to be uncomfortable for everybody, but I'm really looking forward to her. John Cryer will be there from Pretty in Pink, so
yeah,
it's gonna be pretty awesome. So anybody who's in New England, if you ever wanted to meet a John Hughes star, a significant number of them are going to be there.
yeah. Good, nice. When is that?
November the 8th, I think.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
7th and 8th.
coming around. Good.
All right,
All
Doug,
right.
hit me. You got a good one
My
this week.
topic popped up. I don't know if you heard about this. That there was some French crown jewels that were stolen over the weekend. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I did. I did.
Yeah, I literally read about it this morning. And for those that don't know, so some of the, not all of the crown jewels, but some of them were stolen from the Louvre in France, the museum. It was on Sunday. The thing and the reason that I brought this story up, Pete, is here's how they did it. They took a cherry picker, like you'd see in a warehouse, and took it up to like the second or third floor. They smashed the window. They ran in. They smashed the box for these jewels, and they left on motorcycles. I'm like, that, like, what happened? So give me an Ocean's 11 type of theme,
Exactly.
right? Where there's like super complicated, and this person has to do this at the right time that this person opens his door, and it's at the end of it, you're like, that's amazing. These guys, they just broke in a window and smashed the case and left, right? Um, so part of me is like, wow, the Louvre is really they need to beef up their security a little bit, right?
Kidding.
And then the last thing I'll say about this, Pete, is that there's people like we're never going to see the jewels again because they're going to get melted down or repurposed. I don't know the exact terminology, right? But anyway, I was thinking like, how simple was that heist? And maybe that's the whole beauty of it, right? Just give me a cherry picker, break a window, break the glass, and head out on a motorcycle. Seems
Well,
pretty.
those guys, when they were putting this together, they're like, let's go case the joint. They're like, it can't be that easy, can it?
Yes, that's what I mean.
It's
Like, oh
exactly
my
what they
god.
did. I've been to the Louvre a bunch of times, and you walk in there, and it feels like, there's a lot of security. The Mona Lisa and all the rest of it's there, and it does feel like it's pretty secure. But after reading this, I'm like, and Doug, I love heist movies. Oh, I love them, and
Yeah.
I'm too stupid to have ever pulled one of those off. But there's two that already came out called Now You See Me, Now You Don't. These
Mhm.
magicians that do these heists. Any of them, Kelly's Heroes and all those. I love those movies. And to think that just a bunch of dudes walked around the Louvre and were like, yeah, it's a big piece of cake. I can't believe it. And the technology in those heist movies is always awesome. There was none of that. It was probably a guy with a brick. That's how they got in and out. It's just nuts, Doug. And then where
Yeah.
were the people with the guns to stop them once it was happening? I,
Yeah. I don't know. And
I don't know, dude.
yeah, it seems like art and jewelry thefts only happen in Europe, right? You never hear about that. And I guess that's where the art is located, right? Maybe
Yeah.
some Andy Warhol stuff over here, but I guess it would kind of make sense. But you never hear of jewel thieves as much as you do in Europe or famous portraits.
Have you seen the British Crown Jewels in London at the Tower of London, Doug?
Nope, have not.
So when you go there, they've got them. They're all right there in the tower, and they have these moving walkways that you get on. You can't stop. So there's dudes with guns that are there. It's like you get on the moving walkway and you move past them. Don't stop. Don't walk backwards, but you can look at everything. And I've often thought the same thing. Like, wow, this is probably pretty easy to rip off. Nope, nope, no. There are whole documentaries about what they'll just tell you about the security. So the
Yeah.
fact that the poor French got punked like this, I don't know. I think it's kind of funny. I'm taking my daughter to the Louvre in December. It's our big Christmas trip before Christmas. I'm taking her to Europe for a bunch of days, using all my airline miles to do it, man. I'm so fired up. And
Nice.
she's all excited to go to the Louvre and see all this stuff. And I can't wait till her 19-year-old cell phone addled brain gets bored of it in about 20 minutes. But I'll have a good time.
Yeah. Yeah. Last comment on this topic. My daughter went there after she graduated from college, and she went to see the Mona Lisa, and it
Yep.
looked like a rock show because she was so far back. I mean, she was probably 30 rows if you wanted rows. Everybody had their cell phone up, right?
Yep.
And like the thing was this tiny little postage stamp on the wall. You couldn't even see it. And they, like you
Yep.
said, they just moved them on through. Come in, move them on through. So
It feels like one of those things. Like when I saw the Grand Canyon, it was really awe-inspiring. Like I felt so insignificant and overwhelmed by nature. It was beautiful. Or when I saw the Niagara Falls for the first time, I remember that was pretty awesome. See the Mona Lisa was like, yeah, cool. It's like I checked a box. Ooh, I
yeah.
saw it. As opposed to like seeing the Sistine Chapel in Vatican City. That'll knock you back. But I
Mm-hmm.
felt the weight that I had to see the Mona Lisa really didn't give me the payoff I had hoped for.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. All right. Well, that was halftime brought to us by Cap Logistics. We appreciate them and Keenan every single week. All right. Let's get to the second half. Pete, what's your second topic?
I'm going to talk about ocean freight, Doug. It's something I don't normally talk about, but we have these new fees that are coming on with regards to ships that are either owned by or were built by or are operated by Chinese firms. So the math comes out to about $400 a container. These ships will only be hit for their first 2 trips when they come in, but it's a lot of money. When you start doing the math, it turns out to be a lot of money. Well, China said, "Oh, I'll see your and I'll raise you," right? So they're doing them too, and they've already started. We haven't started ours yet, but they've already started theirs. And I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues in Asia about it, and he said, "What's going on right now is all these ships that are American operated, they're stopping in Korea and dropping off the containers,
Hmm.
or they're stopping somewhere with the empties because it's the empties that we're sending back a lot of the time, right? So now they got to send a ship in there that isn't American to pick up all these things. And so there's 2 problems here. The first is increased expense, big time. And the second is availability of equipment. If you don't have the containers, that's a problem. You could have missed sailings. So I don't think it's a big volume, really, but we've talked about this a lot of times, Doug. The global supply chain barely works. It barely works, and it doesn't take much of a wrench in there to screw up the whole mix. And I think that this should be something we should be knocking some alarm bells off in both directions about. I'm not hearing enough about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking of this topic more so the inbound flow into America and the connectors, right? So a vessel comes in and there's going to be blank sailings. The vessels are going to say, we need to make sure we are jam packed full so we can maximize the payload of this steamship line. And I'm just making up numbers, Pete. You would know more than I would. Hey, if it's 85% full, just send it, right? Well, they're going to wait till it's full. I know it's per box, the fee, right? But they're not going to send that vessel unless it's full. So then you're going to have these explosions of container arrivals in, let's just say, LA. The chassis, right? For one example, is like there's only so many chassis. The companies that own the chassis and the dray companies, like, okay, we know the cadence of what goes on. We know the sailing schedules. We know how many chassis need to be where, in which location to get them off, and keep it moving. Like you said, it is very fragile. That's the connector to get it off the boat and into the domestic supply chain. And then all of a sudden, you're going to have these vessels that just come in spurts, right? There is no stability. It's going to be a spurt and then nothing, and a spurt and then nothing, and that's going to affect. Hey, my container's already late because it sat over there for an extra week until it sailed, and now you're telling me there's not enough chassis to get it to my location. There's more delays. So, is it going to be monumental? Probably not. Is it going to be a nuisance? Probably will. And it's a great topic that kind of flows a little under the radar, but very valid.
At Maine Maritime Academy, my cargo professor, Captain Stinky Weeks, I called him Stinky because he smoked a pipe. He had a thing. He said, ships only make money when they're full and down. So they've got to be full of cargo and down to their plimsoll marks. And if they're not making money. So these guys are dastardly. The ocean carriers are really smart at making sure that they make money on every single crisis. And man, it's just like one crisis after another. Mm-hmm. So they'll find a way to make money, and disruptions are good for their business. So yeah. Hey, here comes another one, folks. Here comes another one. Yeah. All right, Doug.
Disruptions are good for business. All right. And I'll wind it up with actually a little similar topic related to ocean freight. So there's something called the Pier 500 project going on in LA. I don't know if you've heard about it. They want to build a new pier, Pier 500. It's going to be south of, wait for it, Pier 400. 200 acres, like 3,000 feet of waterfront. And it sounds amazing. There's been a couple of press releases I've seen about it. But here's the thing, Pete, to a lot of these things, it's a killer headline. We're expanding, and I'm not downplaying LA at all, right? I get it. They're trying to get these piers for these mega ships,
Right.
and the appetite for larger, bigger, better. That whole concept, the American way of more, 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 bigger, bigger, bigger. I get it. They have to accommodate based on these ships and the mega size of what's coming in. But this project specifically, it's a 10-year timeline. There's no official cost estimates yet. There's extensive environmental reviews that need to go on. And being a company that's headquartered in California, you might as well 10x anything related to compliance and environmental protection in the state of California versus anywhere else. And then, like, they're not really sure where the money's coming from. Is it a private public partnership or whatever? So it's a splashy headline. I get it. It needs to be done. It's a 10 years out, but there's a lot of ambiguity, devil's in the details, so to speak. So I'm sure we'll hear more about it. It's an absolute necessity with the size of the vessels that are being built and manufactured nowadays. But yeah, we'll see. It's a good headline. It is a decade away. Pete, you and I hopefully will be retired by then, and we'll be sipping margaritas at the beach while this thing unveils.
Doug, I had no idea about this until you put it in the show notes. I didn't even know it was happening. And that kind of shocked me because, normally something of this size would be all over the place in the press. And I echo everything that you just said. It's a wonderful idea, but how long is this really going to take? And what's it going to cost? And who's going to pay for it? Is it going to be the steamship lines that kick in? Is it going to be municipal, federal? I don't know. Ports don't move fast. There's a lot of things you have to worry about. And you mentioned all the environmental stuff. Well, think about how it affects neighborhoods. Think about there's people that live around the port. How is that going to impact them? And you're bringing in more vessels. More vessels means more infrastructure. Everything from the harbor pilots to the folks that are managing, which is probably good for the longshoremen, right? Just means more work for them. But man, this is big. And I don't think people understand just what a commitment it is from both the state and the port and the federal government to do this. Let's not hold our breath. I think you're right, Doug. I think maybe that'll be our last show is when we talk about Pier 500 opening up.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us this week on Global Trade This Week. I want to thank everybody who listens, everybody who watches, everyone who shares these episodes. Can't believe we've done like 216 episodes, Doug. It's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, that's cool.
But,
cool.
As always, big thanks to our friends at Cap Logistics. I mention this all the time. We don't work for Cap. Doug and I don't work for Cap. But they have for years supported us and supported the production of the show. It's kind of, the level of commitment. If they did give us a Keenan, I'm sure there's somebody better than Keenan they could have given us. I'm not going to complain about it. It is wonderful. And we thank all of you for joining us every week. And like we always say, it's happening in global trade. We're going to talk about it in Global Trade This Week. Take care, everybody.
All right. Take care.